Hey guys, this is Mrs. Bullen here with your notes for section 2.2, pairs of lines and angles. So first question, what does this symbol mean? This little square right here means perpendicular and that the angle is measured 90 degrees. Question number 2, what does it mean for two lines to be perpendicular? It means that the lines form 90-degree angles. So the lines form 90-degree angle. So like this, basically like that picture right there. Okay, and this is a little symbol that we use for angle in math because we don't like writing that many words. So we try and use as many symbols as we can. It's more efficient that way, you guys. Okay, so if I have things on both sides of the equation, remember the equal sign is where I'm perfectly balanced. So whatever I take away from one side, I have to take away from the other side so that they stay balanced, okay? So usually what I tell my students to do is look at the x's first. And so whichever one is smaller is what I'm going to take away from both sides. So they both have 5 x's at least or more, right? So I'm going to take away 5 x's from both sides. Or you can think about doing the inverse operation. There are 5 positive x's, so I'm going to put 5 negative x's to cancel them out. So I do 6 take away 5 is 1x. Take away 7, and again, normally we don't write that 1x, so I'm going to skip it in the next step. I just wanted to let you know where I got that from. And then equals 10. So I'm going to do the inverse operation on this minus 7, and I'm going to go plus 7. That will cancel it. So all I have left on this side is my 1x, which we just write as x, and then equals 17. Okay, question number 4. I'm going to combine like terms. 3x and 6x makes 9x equals 180. Divide by 9 on both sides. So x equals 20. Okay, hopefully you had all those right. Thanks for checking your work. We're going to go over some notes here, you guys. So we have another opportunity to apply our equation solving skills onto a geometry unit. And so we're going to look at alternate exterior and alternate interior angles that are formed by parallel lines cut by a transversal. Well, something transverses something, it goes through it. So if two parallel lines, so this is the symbol that means that the lines are parallel to each other. So if two parallel lines and they're cut by a transversal, then the alternate interior angles are congruent. So what I like to have my students do is put lines, just trace those parallel lines. So anything inside the lines on alternate sides of that transversal are alternate interior. Okay, so for example, 4 and 6 are both inside the parallel lines, okay, but they're on opposite sides of this line right here. One's up here, one's down here. They're alternate interior. Okay, and then the other set of alternate interior angles would be 3 and 5. 3 and 5. Okay, so 4 and 6 you can see in green. And then 3 and 5 I did in purple. Okay, now we're going to look at the alternate exterior angles. So looking outside of those blue lines on alternate sides of the transversal, kind of opposite each other. So one pair of them would be 1 and 7. Sorry if you're colorblind and these all look the same, but 1 and 7 would be an alternate exterior. And then numbers 2, oh, that looks like the same color. Whoopsie, whoopsie. We'll go dark blue. 2 and 8 are also alternate exterior angles. If you have two congruent non-adjacent angles formed by intersecting lines, those are vertical angles. So vertical angles are basically any angles that are formed by an X and they meet just at the point. Okay, so for example, that one and that one would be vertical angles. So there's lots of pairs of vertical angles on here. So if I was saying what's a vertical angle with 5, it would be number 7. 6 and 8, 1 and 3, 4 and 2. Anything that makes an X and they touch only at the point. They don't share a side. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look through some of these problems. You should know some of the symbols we use. Sorry, I couldn't remember the right word. That means parallel. This one means perpendicular. And congruent looks like that. Congruent means size, the same size and shape. We can say two numbers are equal, but we don't say like two angles are equal. We say two angles are congruent. It means that their values would be equal. Okay, so if I'm going to name a pair of parallel lines, I'm going to look here, and you have to look for the markings. Okay, do you guys see the markings right here, the little arrows? So I'm just going to kind of highlight that line and that line. And here's the tricky part, because a lot of my students would say, oh, it goes from D to A. But if you look, A is actually on that point over there, so that's not one of the letters that we would use. Okay, and so we want to name it with two points that are on the line, because if I just say line D, well, are we talking about this line? Are we talking about this line? You need to be specific. So that's the way we name a line, is by giving 2 points on that line. So I would say that DM is parallel to EF. And there's one other piece of notation here that I want to explain, is that anytime we're talking about a line, which this one is, actually these are, I think, are rays, because they start at one place and then go only in one direction. But if you're talking about the whole line that it would be on, we put little arrows on both sides of that. Okay, and then if we're going to name a pair of perpendicular lines, we would have, see this little symbol right here? So you would use the two lines that make the other sides of that little square. So now I need to name those, and I would say M to B is perpendicular to, where, I guess we would just, there's no other points past here, so we would say D to M again. D to M. Okay, so that's the notation that we use. Mathematically, not that hard, but you just have to remember all the right little things to draw in there. Okay, question 2 says, name the angle relationship between 1 and 2, determine whether they are congruent or not. Okay, so if you look at your two lines, and I try to have my students trace them with a different color, then you can see, are those angles inside or interior, or are they on the outside? Hopefully you said outside. So we would say these are alternate exterior. So alternate exterior angles, and they are only congruent if those lines are parallel. Remember, parallel means that they're never going to intersect. Okay, these ones kind of do look like they're going to intersect eventually, and it's not marked parallel, right? It doesn't have that little arrow, 1 or 2. That's the other thing, is it doesn't matter, like up here, this one had 2 arrows, this one down here has 1 arrow. That's okay. It doesn't matter how many arrows there are. Sometimes you'll use 1 arrow to designate 2 lines and then 2 arrows for the other 2 lines. So what's important there is the little triangle, little arrow on that. Okay, so no, they are not congruent because the lines aren't parallel. Question number 3, name the angle relationship between 1 and 2, and then find the measure of 1 and 2. Okay, well, 1 and 2, I know make an X, look, boop, and they just meet at that point. So I know that they are equal to each other because they are vertical angles. So vertical angles. And then to find the measure of them, well, I know that 1 and 110 are alternate interior, which are equal. So I know 1 has to be 110. Well, if 1 is 110, then 2 would also have to be 110. So the way we write that is measure of angle 1 equals 110 degrees, and the measure of angle 2 equals 110 degrees. Okay, question number 4. Name the angle relationship between angle 1 and angle 2. So again, I have my students start by highlighting the parallel lines, or the lines that appear to be parallel. These ones are because of the little triangles right there. And so are they inside or outside? Well, they're outside. So these are alternate exterior angles again. And then find the measure of each one. Well, I know that they're congruent to each other because they're alternate exterior. I also know that 1 is congruent to 95 because those are vertical angles. So if 1 is 95, then I know that measure of angle 2 must also be 95 degrees because they're alternate exterior angles. So everything we're learning about today, each of those pairs, they're all congruent, okay? Not all to each other, but alternate interior angles are congruent to each other, alternate exterior angles are congruent to each other, vertical angles are congruent to each other. Okay, question number 5, find the value of x, show your steps. Well, these are alternate exterior angles, so I know they must be equal. So x plus 12 is equal to 110. And so I just need to subtract the 12 on both sides. So x is equal to 98 degrees. And that's it. Okay, question number 6, find the value of x, show your steps. These are, here's my parallel lines, alternate interior angles. So I know they have to be congruent to each other. So I'm going to write 10x minus 55 has to be equal to 45 degrees. So now I'm going to solve it. So plus the 55. So I get 10x is equal to 100, divide by 10. So x is equal to 10. Okay, now we're going to start just on the odd problems on your homework. Question number 1. Remember, you should be trying these first and then using the video to check your answers. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Rock on with your bad self. It's a little bit of 90s hip hop for you guys before all y'all were born. Okay, question number 1 says, name the angle relationship between angle 1 and 2, then find the measure of angle 1 and 2. Okay, so I like to start by drawing my parallel lines. 1 and 2 clearly are in between, so those are interior. They're on alternate sides of the transversal. So we would say that they are alternate interior angles. And because 2 and 123 are vertical angles, I know that the measure of angle 2 is 123 degrees. Because those are alternate interior, I know that they are equal to each other. So I can even just write it like this. Measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2, which is equal to 123 degrees. Okay, we're going to skip number 2. That one's pretty similar. Question number 3, name a pair of parallel lines and name a pair of perpendicular lines. Sorry, let me put it where you can see it. Okay, so for parallel lines, I'm going to look for those little arrows. Do you guys see those? And then I'm going to draw, I'm going to use a lighter color so you can still see all the letters and whatnot. Okay, so here's my parallel lines. And again, be careful because this M is not attached to the line. The M is attached to that point right there. So don't let that fool you. So this is from G to K and H to L would be the parallel lines. So G to K is parallel to H to L, and then we put the little line up above it to show that those are lines. And now I'm going to look for perpendicular lines. Well, that would be wherever this box is. So it would be this line and this line. Okay, well, this line is J to K, LOL, just kidding. And then it's perpendicular to, and again, don't say KM because this M is over here. We have to use this whole line, and the only letters we have to name it would be G and K. Okay, question number 4, we're going to skip, but you just set those equal to each other because they are alternate interior angles. When in doubt on this section, make it equal. Okay, question number 5. We are going to, here's our lines. These are alternate exterior angles, so we know that they're equal to each other because they're congruent. 8x plus 4 is equal to 86. So take away the 4 on both sides. So 8x is equal to, all right, is equal to 82. And then I'm going to divide by 8 on both sides. And it goes in 10 times with 2 left over. Well, 2/8 is the same thing as 1/4, which is 0.25. Oh, sorry about that. Or you could use a calculator. Okay, question number 6, I'm going to skip, but just set those equal to each other. Start by subtracting the 2x. Question number 7, we're going to set these equal to each other because they're alternate exterior angles. So we're going to say 6x minus 7 is equal to 5x plus 10. I'm going to start by subtracting 5x on both sides. And if this looks familiar, it's because it was in your warm-up. 1x minus 7 is equal to 10. So I'm going to add the 7 on both sides. So we get x is equal to 17. Okay, question number 8, we're going to skip because it's an even problem. You can do that one on your own. And then question number 9 says identify all pairs of the given type of angle. And so what I would start by doing is kind of highlighting the parallel lines and then thinking, first I'm going to look at the ones that are interior, which are the ones that are in between the lines. Okay, so if I said angle 3, you would try to think which one would go with that. Which one is the alternate interior? Would be number 6 because it's on the alternate side of the transversal. Okay, so you would say angle 3 and angle 6, angle 3 and angle 6. Then you could also say angle 4 and angle 5. So I would say angle 4 and angle 5. And then we're going to look at the exterior angles. And I would say 1 would go with 8. So angle 1 and angle 8. And then I would say number 7 is going to go with number 2. So angle 7 and angle 2. So those are the pairs of the alternate interior and alternate exterior angles. And that is it for your notes and homework for section 2.2.